I did a brief introduction on the first page of the trucker convoy that was in February of 2022. It was a way of exposing the fact that our governments have been penetrated. They're being controlled by the United Nations. So I did a one-page summary on the truckers convoy. I do a summary on what government is, de jure government, what specifically for Canada. We have 3 lawful levels in Canada, and then what the difference is with de facto government, where that's the United Nations public-private partnerships, where again it masquerades as government, it's got the logos, it's doing all the yada yada, but it's de facto, it's not legitimate. And then I go into the fact that we've got those 3 different entities in our chambers, and they're operating either as a public government office, a GO, and I tried to make this so that this actually is your public-private partnership, and it's a combination of your government office, the good guys, they're combined with a non-government office, which is your city corporation, et cetera, et cetera. When those 2 come together, they create a public-private partnership that's totally different. You might be able to see your mayor in there, but he's encased in this whole other entity, all right? So this is what we're dealing with over there is the public-private partnerships. We're not dealing with government anymore. We're going to restore it, and it has to be done at the local level initially because this is a global to local implementation. So I do a brief description of how they differ. I do a brief history of the United Nations Global Government Agenda 21, the United Nations and the United Nations System, which is all the agencies, all the partnerships, all the non-government, the NGOs, all the tentacles that are attached in this global governing system that we witnessed in COVID because they were, boom, right there. Somehow got into our turf. Then I get into just a short description on the actual UN creatures that are partnered with your mayor and your councillors locally. I get into the initial restructuring documents that came down starting in 1994. I just touch base on them. The documents are on my website. You can knock yourself out and go into them further. I don't care about really what happened. This is just specifically to get you up to speed as far as what we're dealing with and how to prove how to speak to the fraud of how it happened. Then I get into the comparison between a declaration of office and a public oath, and that differentiates between what a public official is and what a private employee is. Then I get into how COVID actually helped prove that mayors they're working for the United Nations. And as I said in one of my previous videos was that it was only the mayor and the CAO of your city municipality that they could shut your town down. That they called the emergency. It was not Justin Trudeau. So this COVID proved, and I think that was a sting as well because it was just so blatantly fraud. I also include a cease and desist that I gave my mayor after the truckers convoy to say, hey buddy, we just proved that there's no federal government, we just proved that there's no provincial government, and you've got to grab the reins now because it's happening. And anyway, an example of a cease and desist, if you want, goes into further explaining. And then I didn't include in here the letter to officials because each town will be different. Like I said, you might want to be doing it gently, you might want to be doing it harder. I go into below an explanation that the UN takeover of Canada was done by lawyers who understand the power of words. Lawyers speak a foreign language known as legalese, and I call those weasel words. Weasel words are words that have more than one meaning, so liars can weasel out a fraud. So always ask for clarification of the words being used in a document or they will be used against you. For example, what is a municipality? And all of these bylaws hinge on that word. So you better know what it is. And I go through like you said, the Municipal Act and the definitions, and again briefly. And then I throw in a quote, Luke 11:52. This is from the New International Version. But woe unto you, experts in the law, because you have taken away the key to knowledge. You yourselves have not entered, and you have hindered those who were entering. Amen. So this is what they've done, is they've blocked us access to law, to God's law, to the trust, to the covenant type of jurisdiction, as opposed to the commercial mammon privatized. So we're pulling him back into, the mayors and the councillors back into those trusted servant, public trustee positions, and out of that commercial stakeholder environment. Yeah. So if you want to just scroll down the first page, I go through the trucker convoy just day by day. My husband and I were there for the 3 weeks. We left, I think, on Valentine's Day, when we knew things were getting dirty, and you knew that horses were coming and all that stuff. But so this will be on my website. It just describes briefly what I witnessed and what ultimately happened. The truckers called meetings. Nobody, on the February the 7th, first on the 4th, nobody showed for government. Trudeau flew to BC, quarantined for COVID. Aaron O'Toole resigned. There was another emergency meeting called. Nobody showed, and that was like Theresa Tam, Kieran Moore, Barbara Yaffe, the whole public health agency. All of them were called, and nobody came, again, to not only speak for the government, to show any science. And all the truckers were doing were they were just saying, hey, you know what, we've been going along with this stuff for a long time, but it really doesn't make any sense that we got to quarantine for 10 days every time we cross the border. So we just want to see that science. But they were part of exposing the fact that these guys are infiltrated. So again, on the 14th, the government executes the emergency war powers. Then you start to see the officers resign. Peter Sloly, the police chief, resigns. Then we started to see the buses come into Ottawa, and somebody witnessed the planes in northern Ontario. And then starting on Friday, February 18th, the truckers and the trucks and supporters were violently removed, and there was like a lot of them didn't speak any English. That was, the horses were there, and all of it was not by the direction of the government of Canada. For that. And then after which, when it was all done, and everything was impounded and all that crap, then, oh, sorry, we're gonna lift the emergency act now. Oh, our bad, sorry, let's go back to normal. And again, that was done, another sting to show that was a direction that wasn't from the government of Canada. And then Klaus Schwab from the WEF admits that he's penetrated all cabinets using the Prime Minister, the Deputy Prime Minister, Chrystia Freeland, the Young Global Leader programs, and which is the Global Mayor Initiatives as part of that. Anything with global in front of it will be your International Monetary Fund, your World Bank stuff, and then he admitted, the Agenda 2030. So what I went into a summary, what that means is that basically Canada is under foreign control of the World Economic Forum and United Nations right now. Sorry, but they've got de facto possession of our sovereign powers. We can't legislate, we can't enforce, we can't control our money, so that's kind of what's going on. And I basically felt that it's international law, and there are investigations happening behind the scenes. There's a lot of things that have been happening that people don't know. Norm Traversy did a challenge using the United States, Mexico, Canadian free trade, in the fact that if one of those countries is found to be involved in corruption, it's the obligation of the other two parties to investigate. So Norm Traversy reported the corruption of the SL Lavalin or whatever, and all of that, so involved the US and Mexico, and I believe Trump was involved in that. And so I don't know, but this is all hearsay. We don't know what's happening behind the scenes. So that's kind of a little bit of that. Then I go on to the next page just to define what government is. And if you want to scroll down, basically elected representatives are called government because you grant them your consent to govern your public affairs. And there's a difference between de jure, they're rightful, they're legitimate, constitutional, legal, elected, they're in compliance with every aspect of the law, they're public, sovereign, autonomous. Canada has 3 levels. The federal, provincial, and local each has their own sphere of jurisdiction. They're separate compartments, separate institutions. They have their geographical area. Each have independent legislative and fiduciary and judicial powers. They can't download or implement to another level. We cooperate with each other's legislation, but they don't download like what's happening with this provincial download of the public-private partnerships. And no level, like I say, can legislate for the other one. And then we get into, I explain what de facto is. Is sometimes a government official will sell their signature to foreign interests, and this is called de facto government. You get handed over to someone else who say they work for you, but they don't. And it's like the economic hitman, and Canada has been targeted. You know, we're a very resourceful, trusting country. You know, and with only 37 million people, all within that border level. So, and if you want me to go faster, Steve, I can. Whatever I can. Okay. Like I say, it'll be available. So, and I describe what the de facto government is. It's accepted as fact, but it's unauthorized and it's illegitimate and it's installed. It's founded in deceit and fraud, and it's without lawful title. So a de facto government would be the, you know, the private, the corporate, the secret mayor meetings, the councils, the boards, the non-government organizations. Okay, if you got a non-government organization, that's just another word for private, right? You know, so, and then one prime example of de facto is these public-private partnerships. They overturn the rightful government and install one of their own. Instead, they have possession of the governing powers without right, which we're seeing with the regulatory powers, and they maintain themselves by force and captured regulatory control. So that's what we're under now, is these public-private partnerships. And then I go into a little bit about Klaus Schwab. He admitted it. His Great Reset infiltrated Canada using the global leader programs like the Global Mayor Initiatives. The WF basically pays your mayor to bring your town into the UN global governing system and to create this 15-minute city-state that they're doing now. And this primer will help you determine, and it will help your elected officials determine if they're willing participants in this fraud, or if it is a fraud, or how we get out of it. But first of all, they have to know that they're involved in it, and otherwise you can't really accuse them of any liability because they're not willingly knowing that they're doing it. So again, almost, you know, I say, I challenge any lawyer to come and talk to me about where any of this is wrong. And I have yet to hear from any of them, and I'm hoping that changes soon, because we're going to need some good legal law combination, and we got to pull together with this because we have to. So on the next page, I just do a brief, quick synopsis of what the difference is. You've got three creatures going on. You've got a government office, a GO, you've got a non-government office, the NGO, and then when they combine together, they create this public-private partnership. And I go through about a dozen different categories on how these things differ. Okay, your government office will be considered a public institution, whereas your city will be a private corporation, and your public-private partnership will be a global entity. So right there, you've got three different jurisdictions. Okay, so you got to know, and they got three different rules, right? Sorry. Okay. They have three different. The jurisdiction for your government will be a local jurisdiction, a great geographical jurisdiction, the political authority of that area. Of the land. Your mayor is the highest of this one area, whereas the jurisdiction for a city corporation will be just their service contract. Whatever they've signed with the government, that's their jurisdiction. They only have service jurisdiction, but they're assuming geographical jurisdiction because of these public-private partnerships. All right? I go through the fact that the head of a government would be called the mayor. He's the head of the government office, but in the city corporation, he's the CEO, right? He's sworn in as a CEO. And in the public-private partnership, he's called a head of council. So he's sitting in three different roles. He's got three different job titles. There's a big difference. You know, my brother can be a brother, he can be a father, and he can be a son, but all three roles have different obligations and responsibilities. So we got to know which one, Mr. Mayor, are you going to do? So this kind of, I hopefully will open their eyes, specifically the fact that the I don't know if you want to go down sort of to the oath, is if they are truly a public government office, a mayor and a councillor, an elected representative representing you and your public assets, then they would take a public oath of office. They would take an oath of allegiance. But they don't. They're taking if you see in the other two columns, they're both the same, Municipal Act, Declaration of Office. Though that Municipal Act and that declaration is used to swear in both the CEO of that NGO, and then they say, oh, by the way, you can also be a head of council for our PPP. So this is kind of why you got to know where Waldo is. He's acting as three different men. He's got three different hats on there. And he needs to know that because he's got your pen. So I just go through different, what the different titles would be. If he's truly government, he'd be a public official, he'd be a trustee, he'd be a servant. But when he's working for the city, he's just an employee. If he's working for the public-private partnership, he's a member, he's an officer, he's an agent, right? He's a head of council, he's a global mayor. Whip-de-doo, right? So, and then it goes through the legislative control in the government office. He would have full control of legislative. He'd have full control of fiduciary. He'd have full control of judicial. He'd have full personal liability for any breach, for any dereliction of duty, for any malfeasance of office. Because he's sworn into that public setting. Whereas in the other two columns, if he's privatized or if he's internationalized, he's either going to be protected through corporate immunity or he's going to be protected by the UN Charter, and those are UN troops. So good luck talking to your mayor in that column. And that's actually in the chambers. If you start talking about sustainable development or these bylaws, you're talking to that international mayor. He can't hear you. He can't do anything for you in that column. But the other thing key is that bottom one there is the authority to collect tax. Only a government office can. So where does that leave us? Right? Those should all be going into the treasury at all three levels, right? I see a popcorn moment over there. So anyway, this should wake people up, because like, oh, I thought I was over here. Well, if you're over here, buddy, then we need to see your oath of office. Bring it to us. If you don't have it, then guess what? You're over here. So if you're over there, we can help you. We can get you back over there because we're public. We're both public and private. Right? We have public assets and communal properties, but we also have private property and private agreements too. But we act in both capacities. So anyway, we'll go on to the next page, which I just do briefly. The history of the UN Global Government Agenda. I kind of got a little bit sarcastic in here because it's really kind of, when you read the documents, it's really pathetic how Maurice Strong snowed us into this whole climate change thing. But in 1992, there was 178 nations that got together and they decided that global government, they needed global government to save the planet. Brian Mulroney signed. Upon his signature, Canada ceased to operate as a nation legally and lawfully. That does not mean it's not a sovereign nation anymore, and no, it just ceased to operate that way. Okay, so commercially, it's got this commercial level on it. And so all signatories of this Agenda 21 agreed to several declarations, and these were actually sustainable action plans. The most important was the Convention on Climate Change, and these are on my website if you want to go and read them, but I summarized it for you. And basically, the Convention on Climate Change said A, that climate change is bad and humans are causing it. B, it's a global problem, so no sole nation can stop it. And C, we need global government. That's basically all that convention says. It was a way they needed that global problem to take over. And then the Agenda 21 Charter basically said that only UN sustainable development will stop climate change. So all present consumption and production modes are deemed now unsustainable. So all your fossil fuels, all your are unsustainable. And again, we need global government if you read the documents. So what the UN Charter ordered all signatory members to do was restructure their existing governments to save the planet into the UN system. Canada became a UN member state at the top, like the headquarters. The provinces became these subnational member states, and then they created these local municipal UN city-states, and the UN city-states will eventually, their plan is to get them kind of do-do-do-do-do-do, and then collapse them into just, I believe the plan was 5 specific ones in Canada. So, but they would structurally take them all down once they bankrupt you with natural gas pipelines, et cetera, right? So I did a little blurb of, that's just a page of the preamble of Agenda 21 that says, you know, we have the global partnership, we've got to do this to save the planet. So in order to help you guys learn about the sustainable development, we're going to partner you with a non-government organization that will explain this new green technology. Okay. I go briefly into the United Nations and who they are, how the climate change agenda came in, how CO2 was basically, you know, caused harm and blamed. And again, joining these, creating these public-private partnerships that we're now hostage to at the federal, provincial, and local levels. And what these partnerships do is they create that legal corporate veil that hijacked our lawful system. So anytime you see the sustainable goals, and I think they're a little lower. Yeah, anytime you see those, they're either a member of the United Nations or a signatory of them, or they're receiving some sort of funding from the World Economic Forum, the United Nations, the World Bank. They're in some sort of a bleh. Anytime you see those goals, okay, they're trademarked. So people can't just randomly use them. So that's kind of a red flag when you see the rainbow. And then I made a note that public-private partnerships are de facto government because they look like they're legitimate and your elected officials get duped. They use secret meetings to defraud the public, and they draft mandates which quash private property rights and even bodily autonomy. And then I go into the fact that no public official has the authority to sign you over to foreign corporate interests. Your elected officials are not and cannot be a party to this international agreement except through fraud or partnerships. And fraud will avoid or vitiate everything that they've done with their pen. So yes, it's very powerful once you call them on it, okay? So anything they've signed in the past, presently have active, or have committed in the future, is basically prove who you are or game over, right? So, so if you go to the next page, we're just on 9 now. Are we okay for time, Steve? Okay, so and again, I just tried to make this as briefly as possible and as simple as possible. If people want to dive into more information, there's lots more to go into, but you don't really need to know kind of blah, blah, blah. You just have to know where we are right now and where we want to go. So I explained how the new de facto UN global government system is just that corporate veil structure set up, and it looks like franchises, like Burger King. So instead of being governed, we're getting serviced. So policies are set at the PPP or the P3 level, at like headquarters, the member state, the federal, whatever, and then they're downloaded to the provincial PPP, and then that's downloaded to the city-state PPP, right? So that's the franchise system. It's not the de jure system where they're legislating and having parliament and discussions and stuff like that, which is why you're seeing those 3 readings of the bylaw in one day, right? That's not de jure government, okay? There's no parlaying there. So these guys have set them up as a franchise system, and then, you know, like Burger King, oh, the special next week's going to be poutine or rainbow sidewalks or whatever, and you know, that's all you get. So this is, I tried to explain it as simply as possible. What the Canada is now, the member state, and their collection agency would be the Service Canada. That's not a revenue. That's not a treasury. Yeah. So Ontario is a subnational, and that's Service Ontario that's collecting all that, leaving the country. leaving the country, and then your local now all have the service, Guelph or whatever. So I tried to explain as simply as possible, because people see these provinces as the de jure province, but remember they have an attachment now. So it's a provincial public-private partnership. And Elizabeth Dowdeswell, that some may recognize, she's our Lieutenant Governor of Ontario. She came directly here from the United Nations. She was UNEP's Executive Director from 1992 to 1998, and as Lieutenant Governor in Council, and again, in Council means that public-private partnership, Lieutenant Governor is the de jure provincial representative, the crown or whatever it is, but when she's in Council, just like your mayor is head in Council, right? So they qualify these. You really have, like, in the beginning was the word, right? So she came, her job was just to set these subnational provincial member states, but boom, 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 and to get those municipalities, and those municipalities are your non-government offices that are the tentacles of the United Nations. A little bit of a blurb, a passage from the local Agenda 21 in there, explaining, and even with her signature, that and she's since resigned, right, this past summer, because she knows she's done, right? Her job is, but this is my problem, is that these people come in and they do this destruction, and then they disappear under the wire, and then they come up as a board director of a natural. No more. No more. Once you read public and we read law.
Just like Maurice Strong.
Yes. But again, he had that corporate immunity, right? And we need to get these guys, no, you need to be public. If you're dealing with our money, our public money, whoa, no, sorry, you can't have secret mayor meetings and agreements with people like Maurice Strong that wants a depopulation of the planet. So this all has to be, again, brought out, and this is the time to do it, because they were so sloppy this way that they really showed their hand of basically that they're in fraud. I do a little bit of a blurb of the city corporations. They're non-government organizations. They're part of the United Nations system, heavily invested in the World Economic Forum Great Reset. Their pensions are, the OMERS pension is invested in World, and you can Google all of this on their website. Because they're provincial entities of that subnational, they must follow provincial policy. So that's why in COVID you saw the Reopening Ontario Act was a provincial policy, I don't know even what you call it. And then they downloaded to the municipality saying, okay, you guys, now you set up a COVID emergency plan. So they were kind of just passing the buck and kicking the can down, and then your mayor and councillors in your city had to set up their own emergency plan. They didn't know what to do, so they just grabbed a template that the World Economic Forum had. Oh, here's what you do: plexiglass stickers. Rah, 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 rah. Hey, we got 8 shots for you. Rah, rah, rah. It's all set. Don't worry about it. Right? So like it's just boom, 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 boom. It was a cookie cutter. So. And again, just a couple of logos to be aware of. Those are not government logos. Those are not public. So, and your tax money is actually paying taxes is getting us further in the hole, because all your money is being collected to pay off those private central banking system and debts, and then we're re-borrowing for our infrastructure. So we're actually, the more we pay them back, the more we're borrowing. It's just, and that's why Canada's $1.45 trillion in debt. We came out in '74 with $2 billion in a deficit, and we'd build our railroads and our hospitals and our nuclear power plants, and no, forget it. So I go into just a couple of the creatures. You don't have to know all the tentacles. The main ones, though, were ICLEI, the International Council for Local Environmental Initiatives. They came in, they brought the local Agenda 21 planning guide. Again, that's on my website. I go through it a little bit in the guide because it was a very important instructional guide that came to your mayors and councillors, innocent mayors and councillors that were told, hey guys, We're all signed on to get green. You want to come and join us? And if you do, hey, we're gonna come and help you. So ICLEI's job is basically to train the public and the staff on the Sustainable Development Guidelines, your CO2, energy, water restriction targets. They perform the greenhouse gases, your whole smart efficiencies. They assist in the financing, so they strap you into years and years and years of debt. They monitor your usage, and then they report it all back to the UN. Initially, ICLEI was a software company that monitored like ka-ching, 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 right? And then they just became this, I don't know. So again, that's a little one of the kind of things of ICLEI. Anything with the rainbow on is Agenda 21. Anything sustainable, Agenda 21. The other key two members or tentacles were the Federation of Canadian Municipalities, which is your governing body of all the municipalities. Municipalities are that municipal corporation, that provincial entity. It's not a geographical area, remember. So your Federation of Canadian Municipalities is the governing body of about 3,700 provincial municipalities, and these are the legal creatures of the subnational member state. That is the province and the NGO combination now. We got to start looking at these things for what they are. They are not government, they're masquerading. We got to pull them apart and make them government again, but right now they're not. So municipalities are not public. They're private foreign service corporations. They can amalgamate, they can regionalize, they can modify their zoning rules and service boundaries at any time, just like Burger King. These are service jurisdictions that they're talking about in these bylaws, right? They're talking about the use of your property, right? Like, it's really, once you start reading this stuff, it's a service jurisdiction, like Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola says, okay, we got this part, and Pepsi says, okay, we got this part. It's ludicrous when you start to read it. So most municipalities will implement their local Agenda 21 as sustainable Kawartha Lakes or Future Guelph or Vision 2030, and they'll have the trademark logos. And then I put a couple of the pages of the municipal primer there that just explains and shows that they had municipal strategies for sustainable development. And this was a guide that came down to tell your town, hey, you got to do this. And again, it wasn't mandatory. It was recommendations. And you'll see in the documents, it's recommended that you can do this. And if you do, we'll give you a lot of money to do this. So come and join us, because everybody else is. And if you don't, right? So it's easy for mayors and councillors to get duped. They thought it was...
You'll be fine.
Huh?
You'll be great if you don't.
Yeah. Do it for the common good. And then I go into the Association of Municipalities of Ontario, which is our provincial downloading. It's another tentacle. They're signed into the Agenda 21. They're implementing the sustainable development, and they're de facto. Again, it's just basic kind of exposing that they're not true government agencies. They're another tentacle of and tied to this agenda through pensions, through financing, through the World Economic Forum, International Monetary Fund, and the World Bank. And then, okay, we're over halfway through. I get into specifically the two main restructuring documents, which were the Municipal Primer in 1994. I do kind of, it describes the Agenda 21 that your mayor and councillors got in 96. It's saying what a great thing this is going to be. It even says in it, this primer is not intended to be prescriptive, but rather to demonstrate a range of options available to local governments to promote sustainable development practices. It recognizes that environmental, economic, and social circumstances and jurisdictions vary between local governments. Strategic actions that may be imperative for one locale may be either unnecessary, inappropriate, or unfeasible for another. So yeah, there we go. Oh, sorry. Guess what? It's unfeasible here, right? And exactly, it's never been challenged. It came down as looking like government. Okay, it was a very subterfuge, but they were. It's all in black and white. You know, they left their documents there behind them. And then the local Agenda 21 is also very revealing to read. So if you go down, I do the one full page on the primer, just specifically highlighting key passages in that one that's evidence of how they just went that global to local. It's like, hey guys, we're coming down to help you. Like, you guys, you know, what the hell, right? And then I do a couple of pictures of what Agenda 21 was, the products of the United Nations Conference, and specifically the structuring one. And I think, if you just go down to the next page, Steve. Yeah, a little bit lower. Okay. If you notice on this one here, you'll see these topics. The major themes here, you'll recognize them as social and economic development, right? Conservation and management of resources, strengthening the role of major groups, and means of implementation. So, again, this was kind of, you know, this is how everybody else is doing it. We got experts here, and they told us, you know, this is how it's supposed to be. That's we'll go the one page through that local agenda, just highlighting again, and just tried to summarize it. This was the main kind of. This one that came down, this guideline outlined how to restructure the local government. So it was a jurisdictional reform, that was the amalgamation and regionalization of your towns and counties and all that stuff that happened. Everyone's going, what the hell's going on here? I don't know what they're doing. I don't know. Okay, I guess we do. And then incorporation of your local officials. They incorporated the geographical area. They incorporate the inhabitants into the UN system. And then they allowed those stakeholder partnerships to creep in that you saw. And they assume regulatory control of the local development. And then they force the public funding of the smart technologies to create the 15-minute city, and they basically force public funding of private projects, right? So, and then some blurbs there from the local agenda, pages there. They're interesting documents because you'll see they're exact replicas of what you're seeing now on your mayor's and councilor's desk, right? It's the exact same thing. So it's like, oh no, it's a conspiracy theory. No, it's not. So if you go through, I think the next page, I just do the main chart that's really interesting. That describes how they get these partnerships going, and then the partnerships will have these community-based issue analysis, and then they'll go into action planning, and then they'll go into implementation and monitoring and evaluation and feedback, and nowhere in this do you see public input, right? Nowhere do you see municipality, but you don't see government, you don't see mayor, you don't see councilor. You might see city council. City council is not council, right? Council of the whole is not council. Council of the whole is your public-private partnership council. City council is your city council. Your mayor and your councilors need to form a council separate and apart from, which we are going to do. Yeah! We are going to do. So, and again, those charts are kind of interesting to go through. Try to, again, pull what is key. The main thing, though, this is the kicker. Starting with the Municipal Act that came down in 2001, and this was almost like Canada's Patriot Act. Okay, the towers came down in 2001, and that was boom, New World Order time. We're on the ground now. So Municipal Act of 2001. If you look at it, I know it's got a trillium in Ontario on it, but this is an act that's coming from the public-private partnership of that province. Okay, that's the government office and the non-government. They use the trillium. And it looks like it's coming from Ontario. It ain't. All right? You got to start seeing Waldo for who Waldo is. So this is the document that makes it and breaks it. So the local government restructuring included rewriting our laws, and that became the Municipal Act. This act creates the public-private partnership agreement. This makes your elected reps de facto mayors and de facto councilors. Okay? So, and then I go into a little bit of the Municipal Act, and it says in 171 to 187, it's called municipal restructuring. May include the elimination of a level of municipal government transfer of municipal powers and responsibilities, and changes to municipal representation systems.
Guess what, you don't get represented anymore.
Yeah, well, you're not going to be represented. You're going to be serviced. So bend over.
How about no?
Change.
So again, this is right there in your face. This is saying, you know what? This act says we can do this. So this is how they get you is, well, the municipal act applies because the municipal act says the municipal act applies. Well, why does it mean so? Well, because it says it does. So basically, though, what this does is, one, your mayor and councilors only become employees of the municipality. They only get to act in private. They never get to be public. Two, the mayor agrees to act as the CEO, the chief executive officer for the municipality. And that's the municipal corporation, that provincial entity, that public-private partnership. So instead of invoking the public office. And three, the mayor agrees to act as a head of council for the United Nations public-private partnership. And that's international jurisdiction. All through that municipal act, okay? So I basically said, what, did you elect your mayor and councilors to work for the municipality and the United Nations instead of you?
No.
Did you elect them to transfer you and your private property into the United Nations system?
No.
And did you elect your mayor and councilors to hand your sovereign powers to a corporate structure under foreign control?
Hell no.
Fraud! So, and fraud is just defined as depriving the public of a specific person, right, of money, which Jean was mentioning, of money, property, services, or valuable security. There's your birth certificate bond. That's your security, your trust account. Boof! Exactly. It's powerful shit, man. This is powerful. All right, but it gets even better. All right, so this is where I had fun, man, with my town and running for mayor. It was a lot of fun. So if you thought the city chief administrative officer, are you there? The CAO, he's Waldo, man. And the clerk were your friends? I got news for you. They work for the United Nations, and they're only here to administrate you and your officials. These two officers are unelected, unaccountable, and they don't answer to you. They work for the municipality, and they're creatures of the United Nations system. All right? Next page. They have two roles. Only two roles. This is the CAO and the clerk. You don't get to elect those people. You don't get to answer. You can ask them some questions, and they might be, no. So the key roles of these guys. One, control the local election. They administrate and monitor the whole election process, and they count the votes. The CAO and the clerk are in counting the votes.
Jesus.
The illusion of choice.
Sorry?
The illusion of choice. That's the whole illusion.
They should not be touching them at all. They should not be going anywhere near our election process. They should not be attending any of our town hall media, whatever. I mean, when I was doing debates in Kincardine, it's like this clerk was sitting down there and going, can you please leave? I want to talk to, again, interference, right? So the translation of this is, this is not a regular, they can't hold a regular election. Okay? They're not public, they're private. So what they're doing is you're voting, using your postal code, you're voting by proxy for an employee or an officer of the city, municipality. You can't vote for a mayor. You can't vote for a councillor. The word mayor and councillor aren't even in the Municipal Act. Like, come on.
Right in front of your face.
Come on, guys.
Exactly.
You guys, you went and, what? Huh? Did you not read the freaking act? Okay, anyway. Second thing, so boom, translation. Foreign interference with a public election, defrauding the public. And I think that's against the law in any law, whether it's civil or criminal or gods or even Satan, I think will go, hey, good one. Fucking good one. I never thought of that. So anyway, second job that they have here is to control the oath, the issuing of the oath.
They select who's hired.
How do you think this is happening?
Oh, cow, they do it at a city staff level too, in these committees. To get on a committee, it's reviewed by the CAO.
Hold on a
Who
second. Do you want to say
gets
something?
the interview? So who gets the interview? There are people. When the CAO has that type of power, when it comes to city staff or people that sit on the committees that we're concerned about, like say, for example, infrastructure committee, they actually review and vet the people that will have the interviews by the mayor and council. So they're actually selecting the employees and the people that sit on our boards. This is evil. This has to stop. I wasn't aware that they had that control of the election.
Absolutely.
And control of the oath. Yeah, that's very disappointing.
So anyway, as they control the oath, what happens is the declaration of office that's in the Municipal Act, and that's on my website, or you can just Google it anyway, is issued instead of the public oath, all right? So the duly elected public officials are not city property, though. They're public trustees and assets when they're elected.
At the button.
Okay, so what this by controlling the oath, what that translates into is that's a theft of public assets, that's negligence on all of them, and because they had a legal duty to disclose to your elected representatives that they had the option to take a public oath and invoke the office, or they could take a declaration of office into the municipality, or they could take an international oath. But all of it was subterfuge. Fraud is non-disclosure, right? And interference. So fraud on all of this. And fraud, again, fraud stops everything. We don't go back into all the little papers and figure out where it is. No, done. So your mayor and councilors basically just become employees of the municipality.
Also, fraud has no expiry date.
Statute of limitations on
That's
fraud.
right.
It's getting better all the time. Yeah, making it work. So the mayor and councilors, they become employees of the municipality. They declare that the public office is going to be in the municipality. What do they mean by that? No, this is where we will get to, okay? So they put it in the public-private, the provincial entity in that corporation, and therefore it becomes city property. And then they can administrate the public office and the public office holder. Again, I don't want to get into too many details, but in exchange for this, what they do is they swear in a global mayor, that head of council. They never actually swear in a mayor. They can't. They cannot swear in a public official.
That would be a conflict of interest.
Well, no, they have no authority. You only have authority over that which you create. They did not create we create the public office. We public it with our government representatives. They have that's outside their baby, but they assume it through fraud. And so I go into just some keywords in the Municipal Act and the Municipal Elections Act, because those two are key pieces of legislation, corporate code. And so municipality, this is where it's key. What is a municipality? Well, it's defined as either one, a geographical area whose inhabitants are incorporated, and if you look lower down, they don't define inhabitants and they don't define incorporated. So, okay, or it's a municipal corporation, a municipality, or it's a provincial entity, which is that public-private franchise thing, or it's a natural person, or it can be upper tier, lower tier, single tier, local, regional, district, local. But as I said before, the main two things are it's either going to be the geographical area where inhabitants are incorporated, and you can get out of that because you don't want to be an incorporated inhabitant, or it's that municipal city corporation, and you can get out of that because you don't want to be part of the city corporation. So, which we'll get to later, okay? It goes into a definition of the body corporate. And that means the inhabitants of every municipality are incorporated as a body corporate. Did you have a say in that? No. No. So we want to unincorporate everything, okay? Because it was done without right Fraud, presumption, assumption, and fraud, and never challenged. So then I go through the head of council. He acts as CEO. He represents the municipality. He does not represent you, and he can promote the municipality internationally. That's how they get the global mayor. Head of council is that third capacity, okay? And then what they can do, different words in here, but key for me were emergencies. They define that a municipality can take any action in the event of an emergency, so they can define an emergency any way they want, right? For any reason. And we saw that in COVID. And their immunity, it says basically no liability for any member, employee, or agent of the municipality. So there's your corporate immunity. So good luck throwing notices of liability at these guys. Sorry, they're protected. And then their code of conduct, which I basically summarized as anything they want because they change it regularly. Change the code of conduct in secret meetings, right? So, yeah, so some key legalese, weasel words of how they dupe you into thinking you're talking about something like the word person, and you're really talking about something else. And then they, right? Bait and switch you, or switch and bait you. I don't know which one it is. There, that one. So yeah, that's just, and there's more of them. I'm going to do an appendix of, if you want to get extensive into law versus legal and different, but I just wanted to get this out as soon as possible. This is my best friend. This is Christopher Cooper, and he's the City of Guelph solicitor. He and I got to be kind of friends when I ran for mayor, because he was the one that put the final piece in for me. Well, not the final, but one of the final ones. Because when I was running for mayor, I emailed the solicitor, and I specifically asked him, is there an oath of office for the mayor before he takes the oath as head of council under the Municipal Act? And this was his exact words. Now, I highlighted the weasel words, but this was his exact words. Yeah, and this is a circular, when you understand Waldo, it's funny. Yes, and the Municipal Act 2001, the Act, sets out a prescribed method by way of which declarations or oaths of office must be taken by the mayor before he or she assumes the role of head of council. This requirement is outlined in subsection and a link is prescribed below, and he linked me to the Municipal Act. So he basically, when I said, is there a public oath, he didn't say. So I came back and I said, I don't see the word mayor in the Municipal Act. So, you know, why would I take that declaration if I'm not even mentioned in that? And he came back and he said, this is word for word. You are correct. The word mayor is nowhere to be found in the Act. As you yourself have noted, the legislature, okay, undefined, has opted to use the term head of council. Depending on the municipality, the head of council can be known variously as mayor, warden, or reeve. So if there's a lawyer out there, I'd love for him to explain what that means. Basically, again, that circular reasoning saying, well, we said we could do it, so this is what we're doing. So if you look at the declaration of office, and they have to fill it in, so it's not a de jure. They basically name the office, so the mayor, the office of the mayor, you know, is in the municipality. Does that mean the office is in the geographical area? Does that mean the office is in the municipal corporation? Does that mean the office is in the provincial entity? We don't know. We don't know. Okay? So your mayor and your councillors, you got to find out, did they know which one that they did? Did they know what they were doing? And chances are they don't, right? It's very subterfuge. And if you don't know Waldo, you won't see it. And then again, at the bottom, you'll see that this is the same force and effect as if made under oath. Okay? As if. Don't worry about it. I know it's not a true oath. It doesn't matter. It's as if.
All these words mean everything. Oh, yeah.
You're just like, oh, okay. No, I don't think so. And then it's a signature of the declarant. So, of same force and effect? No. So it's de facto mayor. The office is never invoked. He's immediately privatized into that CEO, made that head of council, and the office sits vacant, but somehow they grab our pen, right? And they're able to ka-ching, ka-ching, ka-ching. Because that chief executive of the local trust's pen, that mayor, should be in that office, and nothing gets signed until there's been public input and debate and tendering and all that stuff. So then, the next page, I'm going to make my mayor famous. This is Cam Guthrie being sworn in by our clerk, our city clerk, well, not our, the city clerk. This is Stephen O'Brien, and again, showing that a non-government official cannot swear in a public official. What's happening here is he's issuing a declaration of office instead of an oath, and he's making a global mayor for the United Nations. And we want to know, did your mayor understand that that's what he was saying, what he was doing at the time? Does he understand? Or am I wrong? Am I wrong?
Cam Guthrie is an ambassador for the Urban Climate Act.
Yes, he's going really up the scale. He's like a covenant of global mayors. Oh yeah, and I don't.
Yeah, he's the global covenant of mayors.
Yeah.
I'm gonna hazard a guess he understands.
He might, you know what, he might, but at the same point, this is a time of redemption too. This is a chance of forgiveness, you know what, it's like, I honestly believe that game is up, right, the game is over. So, did you elect them to do this? No? Okay, so and then this lower down is proof that they install a de facto global government. This is your staff report that basically says, the 2022 municipal election was held, the city clerk's responsible for administration, everything went funky-dory, so that proves that they run the election. And then I threw a little picture of the United Nations behind everything, right? That public-private partnership is behind all your documents, even if it's got $1 trillion on it, even if it's got a Canadian flag or City of Guelph, looks like it, but no, you got to trace it back. So these are partnerships operating. And then second to last page, if everybody's still awake, is the how COVID proved that your mayor allows the actual takeover, that it was your mayor's signature that ordered the needles and arms, his signature as the United Nations head of council, okay? He signed as head of council. He allowed the World Health Organization to take over your town and perform Pfizer clinical trials on you, well actually all the companies, and your family without your knowledge or consent. That's how global government works. Global mayors must follow global orders. The COVID pandemic was a test run of how well the UN system was in place globally. It was a test of UN Sustainable Goal number 3, which was good health and well-being for all, and we saw that once it was implemented on the ground, it ended up being take these injections for the common good, or else, right? There's their health and well-being for all. And then, so when it was implemented in March of 2020, every global mayor was ordered to sign a local emergency declaration form, and you should have one of these in your towns too. You might want to ask your mayor for it too, because it will further confirm to him that, anyway, what?
I did that, oops.
Yeah, I know, because you'll see the signatures, are the important part, but the wording is really, really funny. I mean, like, whereas the Emergency Act says that the head of council of a municipality may declare that an emergency exists in the municipality. What's that? Is that the geographical area, or is that within the corporation? Right?
They can have their emergency.
They can have their emergency in Uniworld. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Doesn't bother me. Right? So any part thereof may take such action to make orders and considers necessary and not contrary to law. They don't define law though, right? And but basically what this document proves is that this is a de facto public mayor signing, because you'll see he's signing Cam Guthrie as mayor, right? He's signing as mayor, right? But his first signature as head of council. He's signing as the International Public-Private Partnership head of council, and then the city has thrown in underneath mayor, Did he know that? I don't know. I don't know. So this is proof here. It's on city letterhead. So it's on a private corporation's letterhead. This is a United Nations international document that's being signed by a de facto public mayor, acting in 3 different capacities on one piece of paper. So, and then the CAO signature actually comes after your mayor's, which means he's got more authority. He's signing authority to, you know, lawyers will know that one about how the order of the signature and where it's placed on the paper. But CAO signs off for both the city NGO and for the public-private partnership because he knows how it all works. And then all the COVID restrictions are implemented using only city bylaws in an emergency as ordered by the provincial public-private partnership, not the province, and downloaded. And so anything can happen to you, your family, your area, with just the signatures of these 2 men, the mayor and the CAO. CAO does not work for you, so you better make sure your mayor does. Because nothing can move forward without your mayor. If your mayor and councillors walked away from chambers, what can go? What can happen? Right?
You want them back?
No, we don't want them to walk away, resign, walk away. We want them to... Yes, we want to unincorporate them. We want to help them be removed from this entity and restore and go from actually global zeros to local heroes. Because, like I say, when they realize that their pen put a needle in somebody's kid or mother, that would make me think pretty, or, you know, is committing the area to an immigration quota that will destroy the very, you know, whatever of the area. So this, I think, will be very confrontational to your officials because a lot of them think they are public.
Or if they get sued for fraud, that would be one that would
Sue for fraud?
be more likely to get them.
But we don't want to sue. We don't want to do, because what does it do? You get money and then they disappear. That's not a solution to me. That we don't want money. We want something. We want restoration. We want our public government back. You go and sue people for how does it solve anything? They just replace them. They just replace them.
That would be their deterrent.
We gotta know that they're in a precarious
Yes.
position.
Oh,
You cannot
you're on-
serve 2 masters.
Yeah. Okay, I see. Yeah.
So what if they don't follow our request? What's
What happens if they don't follow your request?
Well, this is where we will do, this is, basically, if they're admitting that they're not public, right? Then how do you have a public-private partnership if you don't have a public component? So what we will do at that point, or the people will do, is start to unincorporate themselves. They don't have to participate in this fraud, right? It's an admission of fraud.
right?
If he's choosing to act privately or internationally when you elected him to act publicly, then you can remove your consent. We can unincorporate from that,
Oh.
right?
As constituents, complete, you mean, or individuals?
As individuals, start to put, you know, I'm not paying my property taxes. That's because that's not going, this is where we'll put in that next one, is start to pull the money.
Yes.
Put it into a trust.
Yes.
Yeah, so,
Repeat that, sorry.
If we can do it as townships, we can put them into a trust, and our townships can choose from tender who they want to service.
Yes.
Their townships.
Yes,
That's the way it should be.
That's where it's going.
Yeah.
So that, even just to say, it's like,
agree.
you have control of your money, right? If you're being tied into a service corporation with an agenda you don't like, and it's not government, you have more than enough right to disengage. Nobody can force you to contract, right, with the city. The only one that's contracting you to the city services is your mayor through his signature.
I
And
don't
he's
suspect it
dragged
would.
you into that thing,
Yeah,
right?
I didn't expect it would get to that point, but,
It might not, though.
yeah. My other question is, the mayor that's currently in this area, when did his term start?
October,
Of this year?
last year.
Last year? Yeah.
Last year.
Okay. So he wasn't around during the COVID period to
No,
do those
no,
signatures?
No, it wasn't.
No, but he was on council?
He was on council.
Okay. All right then.
Regardless, though, this, it doesn't matter if they knew, this, now they do, okay? So we're starting from today. Doesn't matter if you were, now you know, or you've been presented this, either disprove this, that you're not involved in this, or if you are, what do you want to do about it? We want to work with you and back you. We want to restore peace, order, and good governance. So come on, let's meet. Let's have a town hall. Let's figure this out. And you'll have people come out of the woodwork and, okay, they've got the power, right?
Yeah.
The city has nothing.
No.
They have no assets. They're a service corporation.
Yeah, I think they term that equal partnership between the public and the council. Is that not what I've heard?
Equal partnership.
I think Betty mentioned that, and the speech that was done in Aurora, the council, they wanted equal partnership with the mayor and council and the people, the constituent.
Oh, okay. I don't know.
Yeah.
Is that?
It was just a term they used.
Yeah. I'll look into that. But
I guess it's all about delivery, to make them think that we are amicable and we want to do this for the betterment of themselves, the constituent, the community, and bring it back.
Oh, yeah.
Not a fear tactic. We've got to somehow approach them properly
No.
with the right delivery.
No, this isn't a hammer. This is a peace offering. This is a, hey, we can get you out of this. We can get everybody out of this. We can get the police that are doing the police. We can get the police back into peace officers. We can get the teachers back into
Yeah.
teaching. We can get so this is an olive branch. You can help us, and that's why I honestly believe it has to be the mayor. You
Yeah,
can't do it in.
we have to make this amicable and successful here, because it'll snowball to many other
Oh
municipalities.
yeah, oh yeah.
It's imperative we have the right approach. I've been trying to give that a lot of thought on just how to do this approach. I don't think we should go in the hard way
No.
to start with.
No, you want to work with them, and they need you just as much as you need them, it's you're just reestablishing that relationship, that covenant, and what you're doing is you're just correcting a legal mistake that happened. Sorry, we thought we had to, guess what, it looks like we didn't have to, so we're not gonna, right?
That's
Yeah.
why we need to go to these municipal meetings, all of us, keep them accountable, let everyone know about this documentation that's been put up on their desks, and know that everyone knows that. So everything needs to be public. Everything needs to be brought out in the open, because everything's working in darkness right now, and we need to be the light. All transparency, yeah.
Yeah. And fraud can only happen when there's secrecy, right? And this was, your first warning should have been when they're having secret mayor meetings. Come on, there's some big things that went down in secret meetings with big energy companies, with big pharmaceutical companies, with big developers, with big, United Nations, right? They're coming in. ICLEI is pretty, yeah, the mayors kind of went, I'm a global mayor, and look at me, and I got my name tag and all. And it was, but no, the mayor is actually, your town rooster. His only job is to sit up on that post, and he stays there, and he has two jobs. He protects the hen house from intruders like weasels and fox and ferrets, and he services the hens. And if he's taken off of that post to do some sort of global mayor job or global rooster job, and some weasel comes up and tells him, you've been on that post for a long time, why don't you go and take a trip to, whatever, and I don't know, and we'll take care of this while you're gone, right? And then, you put a weasel, the CAO, in charge, who you don't know, but he's an expert, and he wears a nice suit, and he doesn't have to wear prison orange. Oh, yet. Good one. But yeah, it's these weasels came in and started taking over the hen house, taking all the eggs, and then they put your mayor, the rooster, start warning everybody, hey, we got global intruders. They put him in a cage, removed his vocal cords, made him a global parrot, you know, Dr. Fauci, you know, like, and then he was stuck, right? He couldn't do anything. So now we want to open that cage for him and put him back up on that post, and he can be that cock-a-doodle-doo. Right? So, and say, you know, we got globalists coming into town, right? Warn the others. We don't have that warden anymore to watch over the wards. So we need to, and we're being attacked. So we can't fight them off individually like these preppers or like these notices of liability or like these whatever they're doing. We have to unite to a certain point, but geographically with your community, with your area, because that's once you get your mayor or your warden in place, then you can start to okay, the money's the bleeding stopped. We got fiduciary control. We got the bylaws stopped. We got peace officers engaged. We don't have these bylaw muni world. We got okay. So everybody can calm down. Now let's get the town hall set up. We can start to have committees. There's people there with education pods. There's people there that want to do, and everything can kind of right because and everything is happening. Publicly and transparently, but not intrusively publicly and transparently. There's still the ability to act privately, but be protected. And that's kind of what we need to go back to, because that's natural law, right? That's what we're in now. Is it doesn't fit. It's trying to use force to make something happen when we're supposed to use power. Power is more like an off-on and an inherent strength, whereas force always has to be fed and always has to be aggressive. And this is just I really see this as hey guys, this is our ticket out, you know. So, and it can be done any town, anywhere, and like I say, for any public-private partnership, at the provincial level, at the federal level, so we could just like, yeah, sure, if there's any questions or whatever. So we'll be going to the 8 councillors and the mayor, Doug, tomorrow and the next day once we figure out what you guys want to say on how to present this. And then it will be on my website on Wednesday, Thursday for downloading, as well as the speech that I did with the deputation. Oh, sorry, Sheila.ca, SHELAW.ca, so just shelaw.ca. And I'll try to have all the videos that Steve's kind of doing of educational walkthroughs, but I try to make it so simple that you don't really need anybody to, you know, it's just basically to take down, here's your tool to take back your power and to restore.
Hallelujah.
Yeah, and to stop the theft, right? Stop the bleeding and stop the coup d'etat, because we have a duty. We really have a duty to stop this. Like, you know, whether it's in a criminal code or whether it's in your heart, we have to stop this. It's going off the rails, and we know it. And I don't see any other way of doing that other than to put somebody in place and so we can regroup. And the only position I see that for a de jure position would be your local mayor. You'll never do it with a premier. You'll never do it with a prime minister. You'll never do it with a judge or a lawyer. You'll never do it with or a priest or even the Pope couldn't do it. So but a mayor, you can make him whatever you want. You can swear him in as a justice of the peace, as a sheriff, as a executor of a trust. He can be anything you want. And that's so make them, you know, public and transparent and what the protector of your area. So there you go. Yeah. So all right. Well, thank you very much. And that's what we're doing. So stay tuned and yeah, lots of feedback. A lot of other towns are on deck to do this and present it. And I'm really, really excited about it all. I'm really excited.
Thank you, Sheila.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Just one more question.
Yeah.
Next steps for this week, coming up. We've got a meeting on Tuesday and I believe again on Wednesday. Am I correct in saying that?
Who's we, sorry?
City of Kawartha Lakes Council.
There's one tomorrow at 1 and at 1 o'clock, a council meeting that Kirsten and Jean are doing, deputation
Yes.
wise. And I don't know anything after that.
Okay, because I understood there's one also on Wednesday.
If there is, can you let me know? Sure.
Okay.
Yeah,
That's the one that Farmer Ron is going to. I believe that's the 11th.
okay.
Yeah,
Let me know. I'll.
that's the
I'm here
zoning.
for- Yeah, whatever. Let's do this. Any questions, Wenda?
Yes.
Yes.
On the issue about taxes and property taxes, now, Angel suggested we put it in a trust, but they have no, even the Municipality Act says that they can't collect taxes. So, can we collectively just stop paying taxes?
I believe so.
there.
I believe so.
And do we have to notify them, saying that under section 17(1)(a), they're
This-
unable to,
We will
pay
work on, we will
taxes?
work on the wording. We will work, yeah.
restrictions in financial matters. Now, this is coming from the Municipal Act, section 17(1). And it says, sections 9, 10, and 11 do not authorize a municipality to impose taxes, borrow or invest money or sell debt, incur debt without borrowing money for the purpose of obtaining long-term financing of any capital undertaking. D, enter into agreements for the purpose of minimizing costs or financial risk associated with the incurring of debt. E, make a grant or a loan. F, take, this is a good one, take any other prescribed financial action, and that's like fining people. So
Parking tickets.
they're not authorized to do that. So everybody's that's paying them money and tickets are doing it by their own consent.
Mm-hmm,
They're because they didn't read this.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's gonna be a very Merry Christmas this year. You know, if we can get this into place, like you say, is you don't have to put it in a trust. Is if it's an invalid charge, it's an invalid charge. And you know, this is what we're gonna work on for the next step is, okay, well then maybe send these bills to the office of the mayor if he has fiduciary control. So yeah, you waive, you don't wanna stop your services that you need, but you certainly shouldn't be charged for them. Because that charge is a service contract supposedly with the government office. So the NGO can only charge the government office out of the trust accounts for those services. They're triple dipping, right? They're charging that, then they're charging you, then they're, you know, like,
Well, this is their own act
I know.
that says this.
I know.
Where the hell's the money going?
Oh, oh,
I know they're trying to reduce our roads, pulverize them, do all kinds of things. They don't want us to drive.
no.
But where in hell is our tax dollars going? Is it to UN consulting firms and?
The Agenda 21, it was a way, what Maurice Strong wanted to do, he wanted to kill the industrialized nations, and it was almost like a wealth transfer. He wanted to transfer the wealth of these industrialized nations and put it over to the underdeveloped or the third world countries and get them developed so that everybody was equal, everybody was the same world. So there's been trillions of dollars like diverted, but there's also trillions of dollars wasted by these guys, whatever their activities are, whether they be cocaine to kids, like, you know,
Yeah.
so there's a lot of waste, you know, even just
Yeah.
if you look at the space stuff of NASA. And so, yeah, there's a lot. So, and this is where once
So all these sustainable goals, they're costly,
Oh.
and they're using tax dollars to implement
oh yeah,
them
yeah.
at a loss,
Yeah.
like, just to do the
To
climate agenda. To
bankrupt the
us.
wealthy nations, bankrupt the wealthy ones, You know, especially the western ones. This is a vicious attack on Canada, Mexico, and the States, you know,
Yeah.
and Europe, and to Australia, New Zealand to a lesser extent. But bankrupt those industrialized, fossil fuel dependent ones, and, you know, oh, you gotta take care of the underdeveloped. Well, Canada now is a third world country, so like,
Oh,
right?
so they use the term communitarianism?
Communitarian, yeah, which is kind of like communism, but it's for the common good and for the community, which is why I rarely use that word, is because it's like you've got to sacrifice your own sovereignty for somebody else's good, and that somebody else could just be a make-believe airy-fairy, like, oh, I'm going to offend Angel by you know, saying something, so there's a boundary, and that then my liberties are restricted by her fear or her offense, you know, and that's not how sovereignty works. It's all just based on harm and victim, right? You know, corpus delicti or whatever, and not commercial. Okay, you parked in a place, so you owe me $35. Well, how does that, like, no. And if I do, then I want that $35 going into my treasury, that I, you know, that stays in the local area, right? So so I don't have a problem with tickets per se, but I want them going into our pool, right? And then I'm a win-win. If I get a parking ticket, well, I know what's going into my own pool, right? So I don't care. But right now, everything's just whoosh,
Selling off of public assets, crazy.
selling all our public assets, which again is fraud, you know.
Schools, closing our banks.
Yeah,
closing
yeah.
our emergency centers.
Through financing agreements, right? We borrow to build or to fund them, and then, oops, guess what? You guys can't pay. Oh, okay. Well, then we'll have to privatize, and we'll take a chunk, and we'll take a chunk, and we'll take a chunk, and before you know it, there's so many pounds of flesh that you're down to nothing, right? So, yeah. Again, this is done in secret rooms with lawyers and big rich people, and we are chattel to them. And you know, we need to be corralled or whatever, but the game's up. The jig is up, and they pushed it to the point now where they made it so obvious that it's just one signature. Your mayor is tying you to the agenda, tying you to the non-government organization city, and he's tying you to the international entity. As soon as he stops, they have to stop. And if he won't stop, then we take it to the next step. But for sure, we can say to him, well, if you're not public, then I don't know how you can move forward with any public-private partnership decision, right? So,
bad that even the union dues that are collected are going to the UN.
yeah.
No wonder the teachers
So you have to, in order to stop it, you stop it with the money, right? So how do you stop it with the money? You call it. If they want to continue, you stop the money, right? We'll be in a legal and a lawful position to stop it then. That's the mistake that my husband made when we fought the foreclosure, the mortgage, right? Is that we should have kept paying into an account and not gone into default. But when we challenged our mortgage, but we didn't pay, we just stopped paying before we proved the fraud of the conversion that's happening with when they create the money and, you know, on the keyboards and stuff. So this way we're going to be calling it, and then upon their decision, we make the next move. Okay? So it's going to be a little bit of a tit for tat, and this is new turf because we haven't really been public for a long time. Right? It's all been controlled by money.
All the councillors on board, what happens if we've got 3 that are and 6 that are?
Well, then it will be in a position where they will be replaced. They will be in a position where we will have to hold a true public local election without any city interference.
with actual ballots.
Where everybody, with actual ballots, where everybody, and would do similar to what Mexico and New Zealand did, not New Zealand, Iceland did, where the real good people like you, Jet, or Angel, ran for a position, and you were nominated and appointed or put in or elected because of integrity or not because of a popularity thing.
That's what I think will happen.
Yes, yes,
Delegates will end up holding those positions.
Yes.
I don't want to, but I mean, it'll be a natural process.
yeah.
Yeah, I think that's eventually what will happen,
Yeah.
is some of the delegates that are here now might replace some of the local council.
Yeah,
and for all the better. Natural process. It's like a cleansing effect,
Yeah.
really.
We don't have to wait for an election. You know, we don't have to wait for 2030. You know, we'll clean it up next time. No, we're calling it now. You guys are sitting in fraud.
Yeah, we sat in.
Fraud.
Fraud.
Fraud's called, all stop.
You know, or show me where, if it's not. And
Sheila?
nobody is obligated to participate in fraud. Nobody is obligated to obey de facto possession of your government. You're obligated to not.
They're ready to stand up.
They're ready to stand up because they not only see where it's going, but Jesus Christ, like homeless, fentanyl, mental health, like
The time is right.
the time. Yeah, it's perfect now because the currency reset.
This ain't working for us.
Pretty much, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's
Hasn't been
make it a
hasn't been
brand
for
new-
over 20 years.
Yeah,
Ain't
brand
working.
new. So,
We
and this is exciting time.
tried this, did it, didn't like it, sorry.
Yep, been there, done that. Burn the T-shirt. Move on. Right. So.
Goodbye, UN. So I posted the live, like we were live, you were live on Facebook, my live. I don't have a huge following or anything, but I've never had this many viewers. I got 190. I know, and then within 3 minutes of the posting, I got 7 shares.
It's
So,
a domino.
yeah,
I mean, you guys are amazing
So.
because you stood up and you said, "Hey, this is wrong."